Here's a rundown of the key points from Quiz 4. So the first question, who are the Helots? The dictionary definition, relatively straightforward. These are the serfs that work for the Spartans. They are vast in number and perform all of the agricultural labor. But the key point here is the bumper sticker summary of what's important about the Helots is the Helots farm so the Spartans do not have to. Most everybody in the ancient world spends most of their time dealing with agriculture. This is the primary preoccupation, and it gets in the way of everything else. The Spartans have devised a system where they don't have to spend their time working on farming, thinking about farming, dealing with the estate. All of that is taken care of by the Helots. And so the Spartans, the actual Spartan citizens, which is to say the warrior elite, the Spartans limit their citizenship to the warrior elite. The Spartans are able to focus all of their time and all of their energy on war, on training, on war itself, on the art of war, on becoming the ultimate hoplite soldiers and becoming the ideal society. In the sense they identify the ideal hoplite warrior with the ideal Greek citizen. And so the Helots farm so that the Spartans do not have to. The risk they pose here is that means the entire Spartan system is absolutely dependent upon the Helots. And so the Helots, if the Helots aren't there, the Helots aren't performing that function, then everything about Spartan society and culture breaks down. And so they must keep the Helots absolutely under the control. This is why the Helots are treated the way that they are, why they're used as targets in war training, why they're systematically abused and humiliated, because the Helots must be kept in their place. And this is a huge risk because the Helots are vastly outnumber the Spartans. By many orders of magnitude. The actual Spartan citizens is just the warrior elite, which is, maybe 9,000, at the most in terms of actual warriors. The number of Helots is much, much more than that. What does the idea of barbarian convey to the Greeks? The Greeks don't have a great deal in common. They have fiercely separate identities that are situated in their individual cities, and their sense of who they are has to do with whether they are from Athens or Argos or Corinth or Sparta or Thebes. What the Greeks collectively have in common is three things: the Greek language, a freedom that comes from having thrown off kings and taken responsibility for society collectively as citizens, and each community driving toward the ideal society. These are the things that encompass what it means to be Greek. And so those who do not fall under that description, those who do not speak Greek, those who have not rid themselves of kings, those who are not striving toward the ideal society, are essentially uncivilized. This is signified by the fact that they don't speak Greek. The joke amongst the Greeks is that those who don't speak Greek, those who speak other languages, sound like the barking of dogs, bark, bark, bark. But this isn't simply about language. This is about having attained enough awareness, enough enlightenment to have moved beyond the condition that most humans have enslaved themselves in under the oppression of a king, under the stagnation of those who do not desire a society that embraces what humans are capable of. This is what animates the Greeks, and this is what they have in common with each other. Clowns. Okay, so why do Strepsiades go to the thinkery? This is, if you read the beginning of Clouds, you see that the Strepsiades is drowning in debt as a result of his no good son. And so the thinkery, the key point here is the thinkery offers the opportunity to talk his way out of debts that are actually valid. In other words, the thinkery teaches how to argue falsely. It teaches how to make a convincing argument regardless of merit. And this is the beginning of Aristophanes' attack on the people of that the thinker he represents, which is the sophists. Aristophanes is using this play as a call to action against the sophists, the people that represent the moral degradation of Athens, because they're teaching people how to turn falseness into things that people accept. What the sophists do is teach how to make arguments, from any point of view. And this is a byproduct of Athenian democracy, because the ability to speak is in demand. And the ability to persuade people to your side of things, regardless of merit, is in demand. And so the sophists teach people how to argue regardless of justice, regardless of truth, regardless of right or wrong. You can argue anything convincingly. This is and Aristophanes sees this as horrific. This is moral relativism. This is, things are right and wrong depending on, what I say they are. So Strepsiades going to the thinkery is Strepsiades is the Athenian everyman. Okay, Strepsiades represents the ordinary Athenian citizen, and he's represented as being malleable, because the Athenians are succumbing to this moral toxin, this poison that takes people away from where truth really comes from Aristophanes' point of view, which is tradition and the gods, and that Strepsiades is still represented as being, as being more capable than his son. Strepsiades is the salt of the earth farmer who represents the true Athenian. The true Athenian in the form of Strepsiades is vulnerable and at risk. But his son, Phidippides, is completely lost. He has no sense of morality, no sense of character. He very happily accumulates massive amounts of debt that he doesn't have to worry about, that he throws upon his father. And so the other thing that this represents is, from Strepsiades to Phidippides, within the space of one generation, Athens is totally lost. And so this represents the urgency of the situation, that this is happening rapidly, that Athens is succumbing to this, that the Athenians must act now against all of these forces that are taking Athens away from tradition and the gods. And the focus of this, the attack that Clowns represents, is against the sophists as being symbolic and representative and a cancerous agent of this. Athenian comedy is used to point out something in society that is damaging, that is detrimental, and to attack it with ridicule, to make it literally ridiculous, worthy of ridicule, through the most vulgar and vicious humor possible. To make it make it go from something that people believe in and accept to something that is horrific and laughable. And that is what Aristophanes is trying to do here with the sophists and the thinkery. Now, the second part of this question, first of all, why do I have Socrates in quotes? Because the Socrates in the play is a lie. The Socrates in the play has nothing to do with the real life Socrates. The Socrates in the play is represented as being a sophist, the leader of the sophists, the worst of them all, who teaches Strepsiades how to speak with a crooked tongue. Socrates in the play and the sophist represents the point of view called nomos, which is what is right and wrong is essentially a matter of convention. It's what everybody agrees that it is. And so it can be changed if you can convince people that it's something different. And that means that right and wrong is totally arbitrary. It's in the hands of what you can convince people is true. That's what the sophists represent. The real life Socrates, the actual philosopher, Socrates, believed in the opposite of this. He believed in Pisces, which is the idea that truth and justice are absolute. They are embedded in the universe, and they are beyond the whims of mortals or gods. Strepsiades sees both of these points of view as detrimental to Athens' greatness, because both of them ignore the gods themselves. Aristophanes believes that truth and justice comes from tradition and the gods. And so what he does is he takes the sophists, which he despises because they represent this moral relativism, this arbitrary idea of truth. And he takes the philosopher Socrates, who represents the idea of absolute truth that ignores the gods, and he libels Socrates by making him the leader of the sophists. And this is to attack two birds with one stone. And it's hugely successful in that this play is part of the damage to Socrates' reputation in real life that ultimately culminates right after the end of the Peloponnesian War with his execution for irreligion, the very crime that is tacitly implied here with the way Socrates is handled. And so the question here, how does Socrates first enter? He first enters from above, being lowered by a basket. Now, in the context of Athenian plays, what does it mean when someone is lowered from a basket? Normally, this happens at the end of a tragedy when the god appears, lowered from the proscenium, and dispenses justice before returning to heaven. This is called Deus ex machina, God from the machine. Why we have a Latin term for this instead of a Greek term is a topic for another discussion. But so the point here is that Socrates is being lowered from the proscenium as if he were a god, and this is to point out, this is to single out the fake Socrates in the play for ridicule by making it look like he thinks he's a god, by making it look like he has his head in the clouds, anything that you want to associate with this. But this is the first moment that the fake Socrates appears. Is done to target him for ridicule and to lump him in falsely with the sophists. Among the Greeks, what is a tyrant? A tyrant is an illegal ruler who is sponsored by groups disadvantaged by the nobles, by the aristoi. In other words, a tyrant is a popular champion who rises to power at a time of great oppression by the nobility of the common people, of the masses. And so this brings about alleviation of injustice and the rebalancing of society for a period of time. The net effect, however, is that a tyrant represents only the common people and is hostile to the nobility. And so in the long run, the rule of a tyrant is divisive and destructive to the community, which is why tyranny, even when it is initially beneficial, becomes detrimental to any community that embraces it. Who are the hoplites? Okay, so once again, here, you get a question like, who are the hoplites? What's most critical about this is, why is it important to talk about the hoplites? What kind of a change do the hoplites represent? How are the hoplites a transformation from what came before? So the hoplite, the citizen soldier of the archaic period and afterwards, in which the Greek citizen body all members of the Greek citizen body, everybody that could afford the equipment. So this is, essentially the middle class and the upper class come together to form a citizen army that is manifested through these shields called the hoplon and spears that are thrust from underneath it. The formation of the phalanx is representative of the role of the hoplite soldier, which is that they all stand together, they are all equal, and they are all anonymous. You can't, seek heroism as a hoplite soldier, because to do so is to break formation and to doom the phalanx itself. The hoplite phalanx is a unity and represents the community standing together, in contrast to the days of yore that are talked about in the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad and the Odyssey warfare is represented by single combat, by heroes, and the actions of cavalry and chariots and so forth. All of these creating opportunities for individuals to turn the tide of war. Hoplite warfare, the phalanx, all of the citizens stand together, wealthy, middle class, everybody that is capable of going out and defending. And this is representative, again, of this idea that emerges in the Dark Age and comes into its fruition and flourishing in the Archaic period, the idea that everybody that has any amount of land has a voice in the community. They're all standing together. They all have voice and agency. This is what it means to be a Greek citizen. And the Archaic period, in many ways, throughout the ancient world, especially in Greece, shows us a shift from the few to the many, a shift in the center of gravity of society, from the few to the many. And so this is a big contrast from the Bronze Age. Bronze Age, Aegean society is very vertical, with the power at the top in the hands of the Wanaks. The Wanaks controls everything that goes on in the palace city, and particularly micromanages the economy, determines who the markets are and what manufactured and how much of what to produce and so forth. And all that comes crashing down. All of that is a failure. And so the Iron Age Greek society is representative of fundamental sea change, in which the center of gravity is shifted toward the community itself. And so the expulsion of the kings is representative of this, and the result is that the Greeks have possession of the responsibility for protection. And because religion amongst the Greeks uniquely doesn't involve a priestly class, the responsibility for religion in relation to the gods also belongs to the community and not any separate set of individuals. And so how that plays out is different, and the way the struggle for control of that between the aristoi and the demos determines much of Greek history and the transformations that take place in the Archaic period and the Classical period. And that's the end of the quiz. Please email me with any questions.